My name is Myung Park. I'm an assistant professor of Korean linguistics and language, and I'm here to introduce the two speakers of the first afternoon session today. So the first speaker is Professor Robert Gu, who is joining us today from Binghamton University of the State University of New York, where he's the chair of the Department of Asian and Asian American Studies. Okay. Before coming to Binghamton, he taught at the California Polytechnic State University and also at Hunter College of the City University of New York. And his research interests includes Asian American studies, food studies, and transnational and diasporic Korean popular culture. He also authored the book Dubious Gastronomy, Eating Asian in the USA, which was published in 2014. And he also co-edited a number of books too. So today he's here to give a talk entitled Mother Said She Didn't Like Jjajangmyeon, ruminating on Korean noodles during the age of K-pop, which, when I saw the title, I was very happy to see because this is something I could relate to. This is from G.O.D's like To Mother song, right? Okay, so it's like my generation idol group. So, okay, so please welcome Dr. Gu.
First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this gathering here at George Washington University's Institute for Korean Studies, to Director Jisoo Kim, my sincere thanks, to Professor Emmanuel Kim, who defected from the North last year. It's upsetting that you're looking so happy down here. For those of you who don't know, he used to be my colleague at Binghamton before coming down here. So my title, as indicated, is Mother Said She Didn't Like Jjajangmyeon, ruminating on the Korean noodles in the age of K-pop. And I want to begin with I have several sections. Each section will begin with a little video.
Today make me no malete. 僕らまるでマイグラトリーフィッシュ焼けたアスファルトに重ねるシンゲンサウンド夏が終わる前に Take me out
Okay, that's it. So today's presentation brings together the three areas of research that I've been most involved with for nearly a decade: food studies, popular culture studies, and transnational and diasporic Korean studies. It is a tiny bite of a longer book project that I'm currently working on. The book is titled tentatively Hot, Hot, Hot. Korean Food in the Age of K-pop. The three hots of the title refer to three principal characteristics that I believe perfectly embodies Korean food today from a transnational and diasporic perspective. Hot meaning spicy, tangy, piquant. Hot meaning sizzling, boiling, scalding. Hot meaning popular, trendy, cool. And I think this also defines maybe K-pop as well. I know of no other national cuisine that embodies at its core all three of these meanings of the word hot. Also, rather than presenting a traditional academic paper, I thought I'd do something different, unconventional, and shamelessly autobiographical. I like telling stories, and so today I'm going to tell a story, hopefully. Part 1, G.O.D. to Mother.
가난했었고 남들과는 외식 몇 번 한 적이 없어 있었고 일터에 나가신 어머니 집에 없으면 언제나 혼자서 끓여 먹었던 라면 그러다 라면이 너무 지겨웠어 맛있는 것 좀 먹자고 대들었었어 그러자 어머님이 마지못해 꺼내신 숨겨두신 비상금으로 시켜주신 짜장면 하나에 너무나 행복했었어 하지만 어머님은 왠지 드시질 않았어 어머님은 짜장면이 싫다고 하셨어 어머님은 짜장면이 싫다고 하셨어 그렇게 살아가.
If I was to list what I think are some of the greatest debut songs of all time in the era of American and British rock, pop, and rap, and by greatest I mean groundbreaking songs that kickstarted phenomenal careers while simultaneously altering the future of music, I might include Elvis Presley's That's Alright Mama, 1954, the Beatles' Love Me Do, 1962, the Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight, 1979, Britney Spears, Baby One More Time, 1998, of course, Beyonce, Crazy in Love, 2003, and, because my kids like it, Lil Nas's Old Town Road, 2018. If asked the same question about K-pop, the songs that immediately arise to the top in my mind include SES's I'm Your Girl, 1997, TVXQ's Hug, 2004, Girls' Generation's Into the New World, 2007, SHINee's Replay, 2008, 21's Fire, 2011, BAP's Warrior, 2012, EXO's Mama, 2012, BTS's No More Dream, 2013, Red Velvet's Happiness, 2014, Twice, got to include Twice's Like Ooh Ah, 2015, Astro, Hide and Seek, 2016, Boombaya by Blackpink, 2016, and last but not least, EXP Edition, Feel Like This, 2017. Hi, Bora. But if I had to pick just one song that qualifies as the greatest debut song in the history of K-pop, I would have to go with G.O.D's To Mother. First released in 1999, not only the song itself, but also the music video, which features a very young Jang Hyuk in the leading role. Several people were involved in writing and producing the song, including JYP. Sometime later, G.O.D would retroactively list Tupac Shakur as one of the song's composers, since it was obvious that To Mother is basically a rearrangement of Tupac's Life Goes On from 1996. The song's lyrics, this is To Mother's lyrics, chronicle the economic hardship of a single mother raising her teenage son in the face of poverty. At a pivotal point during the song's narrative, the son complains to his mother that he is sick of eating instant ramen all the time, which prompts her to take money out of her emergency fund to buy him a bowl of jjajangmyeon. While happily eating, the son asks his mother why she isn't eating with him. Her answer will go on to become one of the most memorable lines in K-pop history of people of a certain generation. Mother said she didn't like jjajangmyeon. Part 2, Imija's Camellia Girl. About 8 years ago, I woke up from a coma that I fell into in 1973. To be more precise, the Korean part of me fell into a coma, which I finally woke up from 40 years later. In 1973, when I was 8 years old, my family, rendered penniless due to my father's gambling debts, packed up everything we owned, which is basically the clothes on our backs, and left the city of Incheon where I was born, for Hawaii. At that moment, as the Korean part of me fell into a deep sleep, my American identity was born. I remember very little of my childhood in Incheon, which coincidentally is also the reputed birthplace of jjajangmyeon. What few shards of memory I do have are foggy at best, but among my earliest and fondest memory of that time involved singing, clapping, and dancing to popular Korean songs of the late 60s and early 70s with various family members, especially my mother and her younger sisters, my imos. It was not until decades later when I discovered that the up-tempo and ebullient sound that I was first exposed to was trot, or turottu, I guess in Korean, that remained the dominant genre of popular music in Korea for several generations until the rise of K-pop in the late 1990s. Not all trot is cheerful and dance-inducing, of course. My mother's favorite singer, Lee Mi-ja, who is among the most revered trot singers of all time, is perhaps best remembered for her melancholy songs about loss, pain, and longing. Although she was known as the Queen of Elegy, it would not be unreasonable to call her the Billie Holiday of Korea. Among the most indelible images that I have of my mother during my childhood in Hawaii is of her quietly singing Lee Mi-ja songs to herself while taking care of household chores. And again, it was not until decades later that I accidentally came across on YouTube a hauntingly beautiful song that stopped me in my tracks. Although I had not heard it for some 40 years, I instinctively knew it was one of Lee Mi-ja's songs that my mother often sang under her breath. The song was Donbaek Agashi, or Miss Camellia, recorded by Lee Mi-ja in 1964, which just happens to be the year that I was born. Besides being notable for being one of her earliest and biggest hits, the song is significant in Korean music history because it was representative of the cultural repression of the Park Chung-hee era. Accused of sounding too much like Japanese enka, this song was banned from the public airwaves in Korea for nearly 20 years. But during this period in which it was banned, thousands of miles away in Hawaii, I was able to listen to the song from my mother's lip while she cooked dinner for her family. Part 3, Roy Choi's Perfect Instant Ramen.
Let the media hype this. You know what we got here?
This is exactly how I ate growing up, how I eat at 3 a.m., how I ate during college. It's a bonding moment for families, especially Korean families. You know, no matter how good cook your moms or you are, there's always time for like a pack of instant ramen with cheese. It's just like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you know? It's like that snack you go to late night, snack you go to midday. You know, I ain't trying to prove nothing with this, man. But also I see a lot of my friends, they cook the instant ramen, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, that don't look good. It don't look right. Hard to mess up instant ramen, but like I got friends that mess up instant ramen. And so I wanted to like create a recipe that was easy, really approachable, but also kind of blended in like a technique, chef technique, and brought it all together. So you just like, it's all tongue-in-cheek, it's all clowning, it's all instant ramen in a bowl, but then and American cheese, which takes it up to another level. Some people got the neckties down here, but I got hoodie straps, so here we go.
Until I left for college to California, dinner at home usually meant Korean food. In addition to working as a hotel maid in Waikiki during the day, and as a cook and dishwasher at night, my mother had to look after her 3 children and my father, who worked the red-eye shift at a local strip club as a bartender, a vocation he picked up while working at a U.S. Army base back in Korea. This meant that my overworked mother prepared food that was principally meant to fill the family's stomachs, not delight their taste buds. It also had to be cheap, fast, and simple to rustle up. If the food turned out to be tasty, well, that was a bonus. One such item that fulfilled all these ingredients, all these conditions, filling, cheap, simple, fast, and tasty, for me was Sapporo Ichiban Ramen, which at the time was the best-selling brand of instant ramen in Hawaii, and I suspect the world. Among everything my mother cooked, this was hands down my favorite meal, especially when she spiced it up with gochujang and added an egg. As with trot music, it was not until years later in life that I realized the deeper meaning of instant ramen, which, according to a Fuji Institute survey conducted in year 2000, instant ramen was voted by Japanese people as the greatest Japanese invention in the 20th century. It easily beat out karaoke machines, which came in second, and the Sony Walkman, which came in third. And just as I didn't realize Korean trot was intimately connected to Japanese enka, I had no idea that the instant ramen my mother was cooking for me was not Korean, but rather Japanese. And if you go back far enough, Chinese. Similarly, it wasn't until later in life that I figured out jjajangmyeon's connection to the Chinese diaspora. One consequence of Korea's rapid rise up the economic ladder over the past few decades has been the increased internationalization of Korea, so especially the rise of foreign tourism, particularly from China. In 2016, nearly half of the 14 million foreigners into Korea were Chinese. Koreans have met the dramatic increase in the number of tourists from China, which is Korea's biggest trading partner, with a healthy dose of ambivalence. On the one hand, they welcome all the money that the Chinese bring to the country. On the other hand, they resent the growing Chinese presence, going as far as to blame nearly everything that they perceive to be wrong with the current state of Korea, such as the horrendous air pollution, on the Chinese. Of course, Korea is not the only country in the world to have scapegoated the Chinese for a whole host of domestic problems. The United States, for instance, has a long history of this. In fact, one might say that scapegoating the Chinese is as American as baseball, Chevrolet, and General Tso's chicken. And this is not new to Korea either. The Park Chung-hee military rule of the 60s and 70s, for instance, established policies to specifically curb Chinese business activities and limit land ownership, which compelled the majority of ethnic Chinese Koreans, including those whose families have lived in Korea since the early 1900s, in places such as Incheon, Chinatown, to emigrate to Canada, Taiwan, and other places, including the United States, to form the Chinese Korean diaspora and establish livelihoods that often involve one of the few occupations that was made available to them, which was running Chinese restaurants, largely for the benefit of the Korean diaspora communities, for whom a bowl of jjajangmyeon meant maintaining a sense of Koreanness via the power of gastronomic nostalgia. Unlike the Jung Hyuk character in G.O.D's Her Mother music video, I never tired of eating ramen. Although like him, what brought me the greatest joy was when my father would take me to eat jjajangmyeon at the Eastern Paradise Chinese restaurant on Keiomoku Street near the Ala Moana Shopping Center in Honolulu. Aside from what I could still consider to be the best jjajangmyeon, jjampong, and tteokguk I've ever had in my life, what I remember most distinctly about Eastern Paradise are the women who worked there. To the customers who were mostly Koreans like my father and me, the waitresses and cashiers spoke in fluent Korean. To non-Koreans, they spoke in English, or in Hawaiian Pidgin, rather. But among themselves, they spoke in Chinese. I don't think I ever got around to asking my father about this linguistic mystery, which I didn't solve until many years later. Part 4, Tiara's Roly-Poly.
어디까지 왔나 어디서 만나 맘이 들어왔나 어디서 오셨나요 자꾸 눈이 감아요 그대 눈빛이 참 맘에 드네요 옆으로 가고 싶지만 용기가 안 나서 가슴이 떨려와 몰라 어떻게 나를 몰라 미치겠어 널 놓치기 싫어 너에게로 점점 다가갈래 점점 내 옆에서 떠날 수 없게
When my Korean self fell into a coma back in the early 70s, the music that I fell asleep to was trot. Not just Imija song, but of other legendary trot singers like Namjoon and Naona. 40 years later, I would wake up to the sound of K-pop. Or to be more precise, I was awoken by the fantastic blare of K-pop, like a long overdue alarm clock. The year was 2012, which, along with 2011, will go down in history as among the greatest years in K-pop history. Big Bang's Blue, SHINee's Sherlock, Sistar's So Cool, FX's Electric Shock, 21's I'm the Best, Tiara's Cry Cry, Wonder Girls' Be My Baby, Eunji and Sung In-guk's All For You, 2PM's Hands Up, Brown Eyed Girls' Sixth Sense, and my favorite, IU's Good Day and You and I are just the tip of this iceberg. Imagine how I felt waking up to this amazing music. Needless to say, I was immediately and hopelessly hooked. If I had to think of one word that best described how K-pop made me feel at that moment, I would have to say, happy. But my happiness was soon interrupted by profound sadness. In realizing that for 40 years, I missed out on all things Korean. I was crestfallen by the realization that I had slept through nearly half a century of being Korean. In essence, as a Korean, I was an 8-year-old stuck in the body of a 40-something-year-old. The Korea that I woke up to was not the same Korea that I fell asleep on. In other words, a lot has happened in Korea while I was asleep. So I had to try and recoup what I had lost, which became my single-minded mission. In real terms, this meant consuming as much K-pop and K-dramas as possible and as quickly as possible. The result thus far, well, the person standing before you today is basically a teenager stuck in the body of a 50-something-year-old man. Recall that some 50 years ago, South Korea was among the poorest places on earth. Even North Korea was considered more prosperous with a more promising future. Today, as if by some inexplicable magic or miracle, South Korea ranks as the world's 11th largest economy. As any Korean would insist, this was no accident. Hard work mixed with blood, sweat, and tears, not to mention a military dictatorship that coddled corrupt family-owned conglomerates and rode roughshod over workers, were essential to the material prosperity that the country now enjoys. Who would have guessed even 30 years ago that Korea would become what it is today? Not only the producer of the fiery hot Samsung Galaxy and plastic surgery capital of the world, but home to nearly 50 of the world's top 100 professional female golfers, right? Amazing, these women. Some of the most crazy violent films ever made in history in the past 20 years. And of course, K-pop. Since the 1990s, Korean popular culture has been a valuable export commodity. Just as Samsung smartphones, Hyundai sedans, and LG refrigerators are highly sought after products around the world, so are K-pop, K-dramas such as Goblin and Something in the Rain. Then there are the food shows. In recent years, programs that feature people eating and talking endlessly about food have dominated the Korean media, and most, if not all of these shows are streamed instantaneously to TVs, computers, and smartphones all around the world. To wit, from the comfort of my couch in upstate New York, I'm able to watch an endless procession of Korean food programming, such as What Are We Eating Today?, hosted by the balladeer Sung Si-kyung, whose most famous song, On the Street, is my go-to 노래방 list. And Please Take Care of My Refrigerator, in which the refrigerators of a pair of celebrities are literally carted off to a TV studio where Korea's top chefs compete by cooking dishes using ingredients from the refrigerators. Moreover, graphic scenes of beautiful Koreans eating luscious Korean food, televised not just in HD but 4K and beyond, have become narrative mainstay of Korean dramas. Just this year alone, I have personally binge-watched several of these shows, including Let's Eat, Parts 1, 2, and 3, starring Yoon Do-jun of the idol group Highlight, formerly known as Beast, whose song Fiction is one of the better than any Big Bang song. Right? Late night restaurant based on a Japanese manga and TV drama, Midnight Diner. Drinking Solo, about the boozy adventures of a group of teachers and students at a cram school. And I just finished watching Walk of Love, featuring, yes, Jang Hyuk, who also starred in what I consider to be the greatest TV drama, Korean drama ever, 고맙습니다, whose storyline involves around a single mother played by Kong Hyo-jin and her HIV-positive daughter. It is not an exaggeration to say that Korea is currently afflicted with a major case of food obsession. The proliferation of mukbang, or eating broadcasts, in which viewers tune in to watch and interact with people eating ridiculous amount of food on live streaming video, is just one manifestation of this obsession. Another manifestation is the omnipresence of this guy, Baek Jung-won, who is basically the Korean version of Julia Child, Emerald Galassi, Bobby Flay, Rachel Ray, KFC, Pizza Hut, and Starbucks all roll into one. Part 5, Eunjung, Shin Ramen Commercial, 2012, Japan.
충성! 오늘 바나나라면 조리를 명받은 티아라 은정입니다. 안녕하세요. 네, 제가 왜 이렇게 인사를 드렸냐 하면 오늘 제가 소개해드릴 라면 바로 햄치즈 바나나면이기 때문입니다. 반합은 보통 군대에서 쓰는 도시락통 정도로 생각하시면 되시는데요. 오늘 그 반합으로 신라면을 색다르게 즐기실 수 있는 레시피 바로 소개해드릴게요. 물이 끓고 있는 반합에 스프를 넣고 3분 더 끓여줍니다. 끓는 국물에 면을 넣고 그 위에 햄을 넣고 5분간 더 끓여줍니다. 불을 끄기 직전 달걀을 넣고 파와 치즈를 얹어주면 먹는 재미도 가득한 햄치즈 바나나면이 완성됐습니다. 그럼 제가 먼저 시식을 해볼게요.
Hot, hot, hot. Right? All three. Right? The fact that Korea has become a culinary destination for millions of foreign tourists each year is nothing short of amazing. Until recently, Korean food was just a minor blip on the radar of the world's cuisines. On the rare occasion when Korean food made the news, it was usually one of two things: kimchi and its malodor, or dog meat and its inhumaneness. To many Korean Americans who came of age before this past decade, Korean food was a source of deep ambivalence. On the one hand, it was our food, an essential marker of our Koreanness. On the other hand, it was not the sort of food that you wanted to share with non-Koreans due to fear of rejection and ridicule. To go further, Korean food was for many Korean Americans a source of shame. Yes, it could be delicious, and you could not live without it for a long stretch of time, but it was so different. It was not unlike any other so-called ethnic cuisine. Even when compared to Chinese or Japanese food, Korean food seemed much funkier. Sure, Chinese food had the relatively quotidian wonton soup, and Japanese had miso soup, but Koreans had the feverishly crimson yukgaejang. And while Chinese had the relatively benign lo mein and Japanese had ramen, Koreans had the impossibly inky jjajangmyeon. Then there is the crazy concoction known as budae-jjigae that contains a motley of the most outlandish and unhealthy ingredients known to man, including spam, hot dogs, canned Vienna sausage, canned baked beans, American cheese, and instant ramen noodles. Comparatively speaking, Korean food was fiercer and more audacious. But above all, Korean food, well, it stank. Comprised significantly of fermented products, Korean food was too overwhelming for most non-Koreans. This applied not only to the many different varieties of kimchi, but nearly everything else of culinary consequence in Korean cooking: gochujang, doenjang, samjang, ganjang, and so forth. In other words, anything that makes Korean food Korean carries the potential for funkiness. As Food Science has shown, the natural outcome of the process of lactic acid fermentation is tanginess of flavor and smell. To say that Korean food tastes and smells tangy will be the gastronomic understatement of the century. Thus, the fact that Korean food is now an object of desire beyond the Korean peninsula is nothing short of a culinary miracle. And there's no denying that one of the principal forces behind this miracle has been the spread of K-pop. Conclusion: Jiyeon, Shin Ramen Commercial, 2012.
안녕하세요. 티아라 지연입니다.
라면은 뒷면에 적힌 레시피대로 해야 가장 맛있다고 하잖아요. 제가 지금부터 가장 맛있게 드실 수 있는 정통 신라면 레시피를 알려드릴게요. 먼저 물이 끓고 있는 양은 냄비에 면과 스프를 넣고 4분 정도 끓여줍니다. 역시 라면은 양은 냄비에 먹어야 제맛이죠? 이렇게 면을 들었다 놓았다 반복하면 면이 더 꼬들꼬들 맛있어져요. 면이 어느 정도 익으면 달걀을 넣고 1분간 더 끓여줍니다. 불에서 내리기 전 송송 썬 대파를 얹어주면 완성! 짜잔! 우와! 와, 진짜 맛있겠죠?
See? Hot, hot, hot.
제가 시식을 해보겠습니다.
In Binghamton, New York, where I currently live, most of the essential ingredients needed to make a variety of Korean dishes are regularly found at Wegmans Food Market, just a quick 10-minute drive from my home. Along with several different brands of kimchi, gochujang, and other essentials, Wegmans sells a variety of instant ramen, which is consumed in such large quantities by Koreans everywhere that it is considered their second rice. This is where I pick up my weekly supply of Shin Ramen, my go-to brand, along with my favorite brand of shrimp crackers. Both are products of Nongshim, one of South Korea's largest food companies. In fact, Wegmans carries no less than 23 of Nongshim products. Now, in G.O.D's To Mother music video, jjajangmyeon is characterized as a food of luxury and is put in direct opposition to instant ramen, which is depicted as a food of poverty. So much has changed. 13 years later, in 2012, the idol group T-ara was signed by Nongshim to advertise its flagship product, Shin Ramen, to consumers in Japan, the birthplace of the instant noodle. In a series of short commercials, each member of T-ara, who at the time was very popular in Japan, were filmed cooking different recipes using Shin Ramen. In these clips, rather than evoking poverty and hardship, as was the case with G.O.D's To Mother, ramen is presented not only as the food of the young, hip, and beautiful, but also a food that is unapologetically Korean. Now, I had a longer conclusion, but last night after dinner, I found out that I had half the time that I thought I did. So last night in my hotel room, I cut my talk in half. So my conclusion, I really don't have. Other than to say that when Jiyeon ate, in that clip, ate ramen off of the lid of the pot, the Japanese people went nuts. They called her barbaric for doing something so crazy as to eat off a lid pot. Only Koreans do that, right? So even though Shin Ramen may have conquered Japan and K-pop as well, there are still limits. And why don't I stop there, and then we can maybe talk about other issues later. Thank you so much. Oh.